What a week it's been for America at the start of US President Donald Trump's second stint in the White House. We've had hundreds of executive orders, outlandish ultimatums and tech bro congregations, all in the space of just 5 days. Well, after keeping up with all the happenings of the week, our US correspondent Dan Rivers joins us now from Washington. Hey, Dan. First up then, how has it been for you reporting on Trump's first few days in office?
It's been dizzying, I think, is probably the best word for it. An extraordinary pace of executive orders in the first few days. I mean, obviously, we had all the kind of pomp and ceremony and spectacle of the inauguration, but then almost immediately afterwards, he started signing these executive orders. These are kind of commands by the president, executive power being manifested. On a whole range of things, really, Charlene, from immigration, energy, pardoning the January the 6th prisoners, pulling out of the WHO, a whole plethora of things, including, perhaps interestingly for some viewers, declassifying the remaining files on the John F. Kennedy assassination as well. Now, we haven't had those, but that will obviously be fascinating. A little bit of kind of historical information that's going to be released in the next 15 days.
Dan, it's not your first rodeo when it comes to covering US politics, but how did this week compare, in your opinion, to the start of Trump's week first time round? So how does this week compare to his first week when he did it the first time?
Well, we obviously had the headlines are really sort of dominated by something he did towards the end of that first week, which was the Muslim ban. I don't know if you remember that, the sort of travel ban for 7 different countries, which caused an enormous furore, which he had to row back on in the end. But that was sort of one of the big policy announcements. There was a lot of kind of talk about how many people turned up to his inauguration as well. Interestingly, this time we haven't yet had a White House briefing by his new press secretary. So that will be, a big moment when it does happen. She is the youngest press secretary in US history. She's only 27 years old, Caroline Levitt. The other thing that happened the first time round was Theresa May visited the White House in that first week. Now, we haven't had any kind of feedback from London, from Downing Street, about when Keir Starmer might come to the White House. But obviously that relationship is much more fragile now. During the election, Donald Trump was very critical of the Labour Party having sent election workers to campaign for the Biden campaign. And so I think that whole relationship is much more fragile. He even indicated, he said in his first remarks in the Oval Office, well, normally the first foreign visit would be to the UK, might not do that this time. So that's going to be fascinating to see how that plays out.
Right, so a weekend, Dan, is there anything that has particularly shocked you this week? Anything that defied your expectations?
Look, I mean, I think he removed the protection for his former national security advisor, John Bolton. People may remember John Bolton, very outspoken critic of Donald Trump now, but he was in the first administration, his national security advisor, one of his key allies. They fell out. Donald Trump removed his Secret Service protection in his first administration in a kind of peak of revenge. Joe Biden reinstated it, and now it's been removed again. Now, why that's interesting and potentially worrying for John Bolton is he has been the subject of numerous threats by the Iranian regime. These aren't just theoretical threats. I mean, the FBI actually charged one member of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps for plotting to kill John Bolton. So removing this layer of personal protection is really incredibly controversial and obviously for John Bolton, pretty worrying.
Well, that aside, Dan, is there one particular moment from the week that for you is a standout moment?
I think that first freewheeling press opportunity in the Oval Office, which was advertised as, basically the cameras were just coming. Often the cameras are invited in. They do what's called a spray, where they just take pictures of the president signing some executive orders and then are ushered out. But it sort of turned into this impromptu press conference where he started taking questions, and more people asked questions, and he answered more and more questions. And then someone said, has Joe Biden left you a letter? Because, traditionally, that's what happens with the outgoing president. They leave a letter for the incoming one. And Donald Trump said, oh, well, I don't know. Let's have a look. And he opened the drawer of the Resolute desk in the Oval Office. And lo and behold, there was this letter which he got out. It was a real moment of sort of theatre, which Donald Trump is so adept at playing. And we later learned the contents of that letter, in which Joe Biden basically was quite kind of gracious. He said he wished him and his family all the best for the next 4 years, and the American people and people around the world look to this house for steadiness in the inevitable storms of history, and so on. So it was quite a kind of gracious letter, but that was just a real kind of moment of sort of theatre as it played out in real time live on TV.
Well, I'm sure that won't be the last bit of theatre we see from Donald Trump. We look forward to you telling us all about it. Dan, thanks very much.